name is Vince Keenan. I am the editor-in-chief of Noir City, the magazine of the Film Noir Foundation.
I am Rosemary Keenan. I am a sometime contributor to Noir City, and together we are Renee Patrick. We write mysteries set in Golden Age Hollywood, featuring legendary costume designer Edith Head.
We are also the poor souls that have been given the assignment of filling in for our friend Eddie Muller while he is attending the Hollywood Foreign Press Association's Restoration Summit in Los Angeles today. Fortunately, he has made our job a little bit easier by giving us a fantastic lineup of 4 French films to show you.
Movies today.
Kicking off with, from 1946, Panique. Now, when Eddie was planning this festival, he knew that French Noir Day had to include at least one movie based on the work of Georges Simenon. This in spite of the fact that Georges Simenon is not French.
Not French.
Not French. The French will happily claim him, but he is in fact Belgian. He is one of the most prolific novelists of the 20th century, with almost 500 novels to his credit.
We have 3.
By extension, also one of the most adapted novelists of the 20th century. There are over 150 films and TV shows based on his work. As you might expect, he had a reputation for working quickly. He was on friendly terms with Alfred Hitchcock, who sadly never made a Simenon adaptation. Hitchcock called him once and got his secretary, and the secretary said, "Oh, Mr. Hitchcock, I'm so sorry, but Mr. Simenon just today began work on his new book." And Hitchcock answered,
I'll wait.
There is one other number that is associated with Simenon you'll hear from time to time. He claimed to have slept with 10,000 women in his life.
10,000.
10,000. And so I would like to see the whiteboard in his office. Because 500 novels and 10,000 women, these are some time management skills.
Simenon, known probably primarily for the Inspector Maigret novels, which have been adapted numerous times. A lot of different actors playing Inspector Maigret, all the way from Jean de Ben.
We'll be seeing later today.
To currently Rowan Atkinson.
Mr. Bean.
Mr. Bean himself playing Inspector Maigret in the TV series. Simenon was also known for romans deux, or hard novels. And these were dark psychological tales that kind of are his contribution to noir.
Yes, and Panique is based on one of those novels. The film is directed by Julien Duvivier. At the time he made this film, he had already directed an adaptation of one of the Maigret novels that Rosemary mentioned, Man's Neck, from 1933. He had also made the film that he is still today best known for, Pepe le Mocha, which we had the pleasure of introducing at the first International Noir Festival a couple of years ago. Duvivier was part of the exodus of filmmakers and artists who left Europe as World War II was beginning. He spent the war years in Hollywood, made several films there, including the anthology film Flesh and Fantasy, which some of you may remember. We showed that at a Noir City in the past. We actually reassembled it because we included with that film Destiny, which had been carved out of Flesh and Fantasy and turned into its own film.
Right, that's great.
Yeah, I heard some of it was there. Some of you remember that film with Barbara Stanwyck. Duvivier was not happy during his Hollywood stint, though. He was very happy to return to France. Panique was the first film that he made upon his return, and it was, I think it's safe to say, quite controversial upon its release. As you will see, it's about paranoia, betrayal, mob rule, and it was taken as a critique of the behavior of collaborationists in France during the war. This was a particularly difficult criticism for French audiences to take from a filmmaker who had been in America during this period.
It's like he had no right to make a movie.
Exactly. And he was fortunate in that soon after this film came out, Henri-Georges Clouzot's Le Corbeau was released, which was quite explicitly a condemnation of the behavior of collaborationists, and that film drew a lot of fire.
Yeah. And so the star of today's film is Michel Simon, and like Simenon, he was also not French. He was Swiss.
It's a theme today.
Yeah. French film. Yeah. He was, like to say, he was born the same year as cinema, born in 1895. He was beloved in France. He got his start in silent films. He was in Carl Dreyer's The Passion of Joan of Arc, and he worked with all the big French directors, Jean Vigo, Michel Carnet, Jean Noir. And he was a little bit of an eccentric.
Kind of like the character he plays in the film.
Yeah, maybe not too different than that. He said he preferred the company of animals rather than people. Although, how eccentric is that, really?
He would fit right in Seattle.
The female lead in the film is Vivienne Romance. I just love that name. She started as a dancer in the Moulin Rouge, and when she was 18, she was named Miss Paris. But caused a little scandal because the press soon found out she had a child.
Sacre-bleu!
Miss Paris with a child. And you would think the French couldn't be scandalized, but they were.
It's nice to know that they can be scandalized.
Yeah. And she really became the queen of French femme fatales. Between the 30s to the 40s, she was in all those films. And she got many offers to go to Hollywood. They wanted her beauty, her acting talent, and she would always say, no, no, no. She preferred to stay in France.
I wish she had come here, though, because as you will see in the film, she's so magnetic. It's a fantastic performance. This Simenon novel was adapted again in 1989 as Monsieur Hir, named after the protagonist, by Patrice Leconte. That film is, in many ways, more faithful to the book, but it is fair to say it is nowhere near as harrowing as this movie is. We have been coming to Noir City from the beginning, and I think if we were going to make a list of the most noir films that have ever shown here, this would be pretty near the top.
It would be right up there.
It's worth pointing out that Julien Duvivier said this was his favorite of all the films that he made. When the man who made Pepe Le Moco says, no, I topped that, you would better listen. So, I think we better start the picture.
I think we should. And now, Kenny.